I saw the Emperor, this soul of the world, go out from the city to survey his reign. It is a truly wonderful sensation to see such an individual who, concentrating on one point while seated on a horse, stretches over the world and dominates it. G.W.F. Hegel to his friend in Jena, written on October 13th, 1806. The letter was written shortly after the Battle of Jena, where the French army annihilated the Prussian army, once thought to be the best in all of Europe. This was nothing more than proof to the German philosopher that the rise of Napoleon wasn't just a random political or military phenomenon, but a milestone in mankind's march towards perfection. The ideas of Hegel are extremely complicated, as he wrote in a way that's very circular instead of clear in a precise way. But Hegel was one of the most important philosophers in the entire Western tradition. His contributions to the philosophy of history in particular are very influential. To understand Napoleon in the Hegelian view, we need to look at what Hegel was actually talking about. Hegel created a philosophical system where all human history is the product of conscious actors unfolding history in an unconscious way. To Hegel, this is a negation of history. There are contradictions in every era, or Geist, to be combated with to create a new reality. To Hegel, the unraveling through history is called the dialectic, and its ultimate aim is to achieve what he called the absolute. After achieving the absolute, at least according to Hegel, human history would effectively end. Basically, what he means by this is that there would be no more contradictions, therefore no more debates, therefore no more arguments about what we should or should not do. Society would reach a utopian state. So this is not an apocalypse, but a situation where history has ended forever. And this is what it's often meant by the end of history. So these contradictions, like I said, exist in every epoch of human history. Every spirit of the age, or Geist, has its own nugget of truth and is borrowed into the next era. That's only after there is a opposing view. This is sometimes interpreted as the famous thesis, antithesis, followed by the synthesis mantra, which is not a idea that which is not a words that Hegel himself used, but it is used to describe this dialectical process in a convenient way. So broadly speaking, there are three different stages of where the rational unveils itself to the world. According to Hegel, there were quote-unquote primitive societies where only the founders of the society, or that hero, that demigod, was free. Then there was the times of antiquity when some men were free and some men weren't free, and that carried on through to the Middle Ages. And then you have the Enlightenment, which argued for rationality and that human beings could be perfected through science and reason. This was the time when Hegel was born and grew up. Hegel knew that he lived in a time that was incredibly important in the history of humanity. He had been studying at the Lutheran seminary when the French Revolution first broke out and was developing his philosophy in the shadow of the Napoleonic Wars. He knew that there was no going back to a previous time of romantic medieval feudalism. Then there came the terror, the blood spilling, and the paranoia. We see within the revolution the dialectic playing out, the contradictions, the freedom-loving, libertine ideology of the revolution, then spilled over into its antithesis, which is blood sport and the guillotine and paranoia, and all the hallmarks of a classic totalitarian dictatorship. Hegel thought Napoleon's rise to prominence represented the ultimate fulfillment or the blending of this situation. This is because to Hegel, the hero of every age is an unconscious actor who is called before his time to end these contradictions. Napoleon did not set out to conquer all of Europe at the beginning of his career. He was only trying to find his way up through the French military hierarchy. But taking advantage of the fragile political situation, Napoleon was able to overthrow the Directory, the corrupt Directory, and eventually create a dictatorship, an empire, and with himself as emperor. He still did not see himself as an exporter of the ideals of the revolution. It was not until the other powers of Europe, Austria, Prussia, and Russia, tried to destroy Napoleon and destroy France and destroy even the inkling of revolution ever again. He fought back against these belligerent nations because he hoped to save his country. And it was only then in the process that he was able to export the ideas to these conquered people. And in the aftermath of the Napoleonic Wars, modern Europe was born. Modern ideas like nationalism and self-determination became conscious for the peoples of Italy and Austria-Hungary, long under the heels of oppressive feudalism and the legacies of the Holy Roman Empire and of the Papal States. According to Hegel, the hero is a man of action, and as he writes in the Phenomenology, quote, "The real being of man lies rather in his deed. It is in this deed that individuality is effective." As I explained earlier, the hero does not passively sit around pondering his place in the world. The hero instead goes boldly forth into the unknown and creates a new reality. He may not know it at the time, but this is how the great man makes history. It's also worth noting that this person is not a brutal tyrant. Never would an Alexander or Napoleon or Caesar be an oppressive despot. Instead, they would promote the common good even at the expense of the degenerate democratic process. The man of action is a micromanager of the state, whose actions and not lectures or panderings make for a better tomorrow. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video essay. Of course, there is much wrong with Hegel, and many other philosophers have much to say about Napoleon and obviously politics. So I'd love to see, and I'd love to hear from you guys to see what you have to say about the legacy of the Napoleonic era and what we can learn from Hegel and Napoleon and others. So please like and subscribe and stay tuned for more videos.